up technology for a joint venture of the 6 major Hollywood studios. It was started about 6 years ago here in Palo Alto to help the studios with the digital transition, assess digital technologies for distribution. So we're involved not so much in the creation of the technology as we are in trying to foster the development of new technology areas by other parties and doing research. So I'm going to be speaking today about sort of Hollywood and the digital world and how technology is yet again changing how it is that we watch movies. I'm going to start with a little bit of a historical look at how distribution technologies in the past have impacted movie watching. So obviously, you know, back for most of the early part of the 20th century, theatrical was the dominant way for watching movies. And if you look here, you'll see that you know, there was a very strong peak in the mid-1940s, just after the war. That purple line there is the box office in current dollars. And you can see that during the rise of TV, there was a very, very significant drop-off in the box office, even below the levels that were seen prior to the end of World War II. But at the same time, you can see that after that, revenue kind of stabilized and slowly grew up from the mid-1960s from $6 billion up to the current $10 billion a year box office. And during this time, there had been all kinds of introductions of new technologies. There was introduction of VHS, cable came along, and you could start watching your favorite movies on premium cable channels. VHS and then DVD came along, and you could buy or rent the movie to keep at home. And then other technologies more recently, we've had Blu-ray come along, iTunes for movie distribution, and other technology such as BitTorrent, which has at least provided competition to some of the legitimate distribution means. So looking at this, you know, it looks as though movies from mid-1960s through today, box office, you know, not doing too bad. If you look a little bit at the actual tickets per capita, we've still never recovered, never come back anywhere close to where we were, you know, before the TV era, which isn't too surprising. TV is a very compelling medium, but you know, basically, it's dropped, you know, like 75% from the 1950 to the mid 1960s, and really hasn't come back. So looking at this, you would say, wow, did TV kill Hollywood? And the answer, of course, as we know, is no, it didn't kill Hollywood. And in fact, the same technologies that actually were threatening consumer attendance at movie theaters, the advent of television, actually somewhat later facilitated other business models that were actually very, very lucrative for the studios. So cable and satellite technology came along and added the ability to have premium channels, subscription channels, which was a significant revenue opportunity. Then VOD came along, offering another opportunity. VHS came along, and people started buying some tapes and especially renting VHS. The corner video store came into existence, and then Blockbuster. And then with DVD, the retail market really took off. People bought DVDs and it ended up being a huge revenue opportunity. And of course, none of this would have been possible if you didn't have a television set at home. So the rise of these new ways to watch movies radically changed the revenue model that the studios were working on. You look in the early 1980s, already premium TV was actually matching box office revenues. By 1990, premium TV was even higher, and now VHS was actually coming up to also match box office revenues. 10 years later, in 2000, DVD and VHS sales were double what the box office revenues were. And at the peak of DVD in 2005, about half of the studio revenue was coming from DVD and VHS sales, about a third from cable and satellite, and really only about a sixth from theatrical. So the advent of these new technologies radically changed the way that with the way that Hollywood did business. Now, of course, we're looking at the end of DVD and Blu-ray. At some point, we expect that for convenience purposes and other reasons that digital download and streaming will probably take over from those. It took, I think, about 10 years or so for VHS to kind of track down. You can see the light bars on the graph are the VHS transition over to DVD, which are the mid-gray bars. But the thing that really is of interest here is the red line, which is digital, because that is the future. And it's been a rough transition. 2009, the combined revenue, if you look at DVD, Blu-ray, and digital, was down like 7.6%, which is a pretty hard hit for any business. If you look just at DVD, it was down much more than that. 2010 actually saw that slow, so there was only about a 3% drop, and largely that was due to a Blu-ray finally kicking in a little bit, and also the digital space starting to come in to pick up the slack. The $10 billion question on everyone's mind in Hollywood is, where are these lines going to cross? Is digital going to come up and meet the decline of physical halfway, or is it going to be lower? And if so, how much lower? If I knew the answer to that question, I probably would have a different job. But looking at digital, it finally is on a good trajectory. So $2.5 billion in 2010, a good fraction of which was transactional VOD, so VOD that you pay for on a transaction-by-transaction basis. There's also some rental and subscription, but generally EST, so sort of the direct replacement for DVD purchases, where you actually buy a digital download, is actually still a small part of that. It's increasing, but the dominant parts are the rental and subscription and VOD components. So where are we today? Well, there are so many ways to consume. It's kind of a wonderful time to be a consumer in some ways, because you have all these services to choose from. You can get it on more and more devices, game machines, tablets, laptops. Because people are now learning to multitask, you actually can consume more than one piece of media at a time. This is sort of an interesting statistic, is that among 8 to 18-year-olds, they daily consume 11 hours of media in 7.5 hours. So basically, almost half of the time, they actually are consuming more than one piece of media at a time. Anyway, the new world is really great for consumers. But in the end, these rental and subscriptions are much less lucrative than purchase was for DVD, and Hollywood is still wrestling with that. The golden era of the DVD is gone. So last year, Katzenberg had an interesting quote, sort of facing the new reality that 2 or 3 years ago, people had no problems purchasing a DVD for $18, but suddenly, today, it seems that $20 is something you think twice about. And $20 for a DVD that you'll watch once or twice in a world where you have Netflix, Blockbuster, Redbox, many VOD services, digital delivery, Amazon. You can go through a list of options on a per-play basis where you can watch for $5 or $3 or $2.50. The overall movie world is having to deal with the change in consumer habits. So there's a realization that the world is not coming back to DVD, but there also is a strong desire to make the new world as, attractive as possible. So here's a quote from David Bishop, the president of Sony Pictures Home Entertainment. The days of baby steps on the internet are over. It's now critical that we experiment as much as possible and determine how to build a vibrant market for collecting digital movies. So in the DVD golden era, a lot of people would buy DVDs to create a collection. They would buy DVDs as gifts. So the studios are trying to figure out how to make digital downloads, and ownership means something in a digital world. Maybe people will start building up big collections again. At least we know it does take up a lot less space. And I just finished moving, and all those CDs and DVDs that I still have, much rather have them on my hard drive. One of the initiatives that the studios are doing is called Ultraviolet, and five of the six studios are establishing a system by which consumers will be able to buy a title once, and then that will actually entitle them to stream it from one or more providers to whatever device they have. Because one of the problems with ownership currently is that if you buy it on iTunes, you can only watch it on iTunes. And so if you want to stream it from Netflix or Amazon or someplace else, watch it on your Zune player, you can't do that. And so Ultraviolet is attempting to return that ownership ability to actually watch what you bought, on whatever device you'd like to, from whatever service. Another aspect that there's a fair amount of work going into is digital extras. So in the DVD and Blu-ray era, the studios, especially on the really large titles, put a lot of effort into all of the value-added material, the director's commentary, the outtakes. On Blu-ray, you can often have an online interactive experience. And all these things were viewed as very strong incentives for someone to buy. They'd be things that would be on the box. You could look on the back of the box and you would say, ooh, wow, Steven Spielberg is giving his director's commentary. Maybe I will buy this after all, instead of just renting it. So iTunes Extras, iTunes has deployed something that has some of these capabilities, but it's still not yet common. And I think you'll definitely see a lot more of the studios creating these richer interactive packages, experiences, and we're seeing some of that, and I'll give a couple examples a little later. So getting back to the sort of original curve there and the theatrical box office, one of the really big questions right now is what impact is this going to have on theatrical? Consumers more and more are expecting to get what they want, when they want it and where they want it. The what they want and where they want it, more and more technology is delivering it. When they want it is largely governed by windowing. And one of the key windows is the theatrical window, which basically, DVD sales and VOD availability don't start until currently about 4 months after the theatrical release. So there's a lot of speculation as to what's going to happen, how strongly are consumers going to expect to really get content that is currently in the theater in their homes. Now, the theatrical window has survived for over 30 years, ever since windowing was sort of first introduced. But it's a very interesting question as to where it's going to go. So windows have been Hollywood's answer for new technology. For the last 30 years, new technology, new window. So when broadcast TV came along, they added a window for ad-supported showing of TVs a few years after the theatrical release. In the 1980s, when premium cable TV came along and VHS, they added a couple more windows. They added one for VHS sales and rentals, and they added another one for premium cable availability. In the 2000s, when cable VOD really came online strongly, time for another window, for the VOD window, which came before the premium TV window. Since then, there have been Redbox, one point was doing rentals day and date with the DVD release. There was a little dispute with the studios over that, and in the end, both Redbox and Netflix ended up delaying for 28 days from DVD release for most of their rentals. But again, so that's another window that's been introduced, is the distinction between DVD rental and DVD release. Similarly, there's now a distinction between the transactional VOD and sort of the traditional cable subscription VOD. So today we have like 5 or 6 windows. We have 5 or 6 technologies. And the studios have always been tuning this to try to to try and maximize their revenue opportunities. Basically, each time interval they want to try and extract the maximum value for their content, most understandably. But the advent of all of these new digital models that are coming online, and sort of some of the breaking down of some of the traditional windows is really stirring up this whole pot. It's no longer a clean set of a limited number of windows. So the theatrical window is definitely coming under pressure. I guess over the last 10 years, you'll see a decline there from about a 6-month window to down to about 4.5 months. And recently there have been some kind of dramatic experiments trying to get consumer access outside of the theater closer into the theatrical window. Last year, the Alice in Wonderland DVD was released just 3 months after theatrical release, created a little bit of a flurry of debate and discussion. There was even more when, just about that same time, DirecTV and the studios announced that they were doing a $30 premium VOD just 30 days after the theatrical release. And over that last one, the studios actually and the exhibitors had a little bit of a disagreement, because the exhibitors were extremely concerned about the invasion of their window. And if you look at it, only about 10% of the American population are regular theater goers, and that's been kind of stable. And so their concern is, what if some significant part of those people decide to take advantage of an earlier viewing that they can do in their home on their big screen TV? If you look back 10 years ago during the recession, the movie theaters were hit pretty hard. They had done a lot of expansion, and just the 5% or so drop that they had in box office ended up pushing 3 of the 5 major exhibitor chains to file for bankruptcy. So, they have their reasons for concern. So in early 2010, when these announcements were made about Alice and the DirecTV premium VOD windows, NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners, came up with an open letter that was signed by a number of directors, writers, and other talent, saying that a release pattern for premium video on demand that invades the current theatrical window could irrevocably harm the financial model of our film industry. That led the CEO of CBS to respond that, well, calm down a little bit. I know theater owners are scared. They're going to have to change a bit to prevent a crisis, which then NATO was somewhat disturbed by and came back with a rather pointed response. Forgive us if we decline to take business lessons from the end of the industry, namely home entertainment sections of the studios, that enabled the erosion of value in the home video market. The creation of the $1.99 kiosk rentals and $7.99 monthly subscriptions have undercut the sell-through model in the home, not theatrical release windows. So he's basically saying, your problem is that this digital world is cutting into your DVDs. Don't blame it on us, the theater guys, and don't come into our window. But this year, it's no longer quite as news-breaking when the studio decides to pull in a release date, especially for DVD. A very large film, Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon, that DVD was released just 3 months after theatrical, and there was comparatively little media debate over it. So things are changing. But basically theatrical is strong. $10.6 billion gross. Ticket prices are up quite a bit because of 3D. Up from $6.55 in 2006 to almost $8 last year, largely driven by 3D. There were 1.34 billion tickets sold last year domestically, but that's actually down a little bit from 2009. 3 films this year so far have already exceeded $1 billion in worldwide box office, so you can't say that Hollywood and the theaters are doing poorly by any means. The digital transition is also affecting other windows. So the DVD, VOD window is collapsing in a lot of ways. Last year, the top 10 transactional VOD titles were all released day and date with the DVD. Comcast did 200 titles last year, day and date with the DVD. iTunes and Vudu usually do as well. And Sony has even tried a couple titles online prior to the DVD release. Another interesting manifestation has been the change in worldwide release schedules. So it used to be that movies were often usually released over like a 3 to 8 month period, usually first domestically and then internationally, for marketing reasons, for seasonality reasons. So like a summer blockbuster movie, you could actually release it at summertime in Australia in December, for example. But a couple things have changed that. First, international consumers, because of the internet and sort of the common marketing space, become aware of the movies much sooner, and they want to see them sooner. The other thing is there are other technologies such as BitTorrent and download and streaming by which you can, if you want to see it, you can find it out there. And so the combination of those two things has encouraged the studios to do more and more simultaneous or relatively shortly staged releases. So like in 2000, the big X-Men movie was spread out over about 3 months. The one in 2009, X-Men Wolverine, was done in less than a week. So a lot of changes, and all of this is really driven by technology. There also are some battles between and within the windows. So this really is how the windowing impacts consumers, what they see, what they can get, when they can watch it. Back a long time ago, it used to be a little bit simpler. You just go to the theater. Then you could buy or rent a VHS tape or wait for it on cable. Today, with this kind of proliferation of all of these windows, as well as exclusive deals and such, it's titles will appear and disappear on the service you've signed up for. So these collapsing windows and all of this jockeying around is definitely making more content available earlier, but not necessarily by your provider. So there's recently in the news, I'm sure you read about Starz and Netflix, that Netflix got really a good deal that enabled a lot of their streaming service at a relatively low price, at least compared with the comparable cable service. And it looks as though they haven't been able to come to terms on a new deal. And then in another direction, so they might not have that catalog come next year, but then on the other hand, they're also making exclusive deals elsewhere. So for example, with Relativity Media, they did an exclusive deal where they're going to get Relativity Media titles, and which means you won't be able to get them elsewhere, at least for that delivery modality. So it's very complicated. The content availability is probably likely to continue to be fragmented, but some windows are holding. The DVD rental that I mentioned earlier, the studios actually kind of pushed that one back a little bit, but it's all changing very, very rapidly. So the good news is this really is a great time for innovation. All of this new technology, all of this froth on business negotiation and windowing is providing a lot of pressure to try out new things, to experiment. And consumers want content in more places with fewer restrictions, and the studios are responding to that. So there are all these new opportunities to connect with consumers, to market to them, to sell, which is why I'm not too concerned that the digital transition and the demise of DVD is going to be, it's by no means the end. There's so many things that can be done. Interactive online experiences, you can share reviews, comments, favorites. Studios are developing applications that combine interactivity, games, trivia, interacting with your friends. They're marketing strongly through the social networks. Ultraviolet is coming up with ways to give meaning to digital ownership. The packaging of additional interactive material around movies is happening, as I mentioned, on iTunes Extras, but also on Facebook, where they'll often build games or other interactive experiences around it, and also the packaging of movies up into iOS or Android applications. So this is the app edition of Dark Knight, and you can run it on your iPhone or your iPad, and it has most of the things that a DVD would have, or a Blu-ray disc, and then some. So because you can actually, these devices are usually connected to the internet, so there are things you can do that you wouldn't have been able to do on a DVD player. Facebook, they're often combining little quests and games where, prior to the release, you can do things to find out more about the movie, get little bits of bonus material. They'll often also allow you to stream the movie if you want to actually buy it through Facebook. So a lot of innovation there, and I think you'll see more of it. In the end, I think that the outcomes, unlike the advent of broadcast TV, which really was a big hit from the 50s to the mid-60s, the connected digital technologies are really offering huge opportunities to innovate, to create new applications, new ways to connect with consumers. And there are lots of innovations in delivery coming with digital ownership, applications and extras, and theatrical is by no means going away. There's some concern that maybe it will focus more on big titles, and that there may be more smaller titles that might go direct to video, for example. I'm not sure about that, but theatrical is not by any means a threat of extinction. And digital is finally beginning to come up faster, so it's probably not going to match the golden era of DVD, but it already is beginning to soften sort of the financial blow that the studios have felt from the decline in DVD sales. But there are also going to be some bumps. With all of the jostling around windows and exclusive rights and distribution for rental versus download, I think it's still going to be at least a little bit, confusing for the consumer, and the consumer may have to access more than one service to get all of the content that they want. Anyway, that covers my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Hey, what would the best way be for a independent filmmaker to use the internet to market his work and get it out there?
Certainly from just a marketing perspective, Facebook, Twitter, I mean, the social networks are, that's where the studios are being to market a lot of their movies. Beyond that, they're also, creating websites, linking to your website. There also are some websites that focus on smaller, independent content that, if you can get placement with them on their page. One thing, a lot of this stuff is also really being strongly driven by placement. So iTunes, because it is such a strong player in the online video market, getting your movie featured, on the front video page of iTunes is huge. That's probably a difficult task for a small producer. It's even a difficult task for our member studios. But there are lots of methods and more coming. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Had one quick question.
Oh.
4G. How is that affecting things?
It's I think it's largely providing more access in the mobile context, right? It's the delivery of movies to tablets and phones is already happening. Most phones of this caliber can do Wi-Fi as well. So I think it's a means more of untethering and enabling you to do the streaming option as opposed to the download option. If you noticed on the Dark Knight, you could either stream or you could download. And so I think the 4G and faster network connections, more pervasive network connections, are going to enable more of the streaming model.